Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, this is me. Hello, this is going to be a random facts ASMR video. I'm using the built-in mic on these earbuds, these Skullcandy Jib earbuds, so hopefully you can hear me clearly. Let me know in the comments section that you do. So first, let's get started with one random fact. This little random symbol that you see here that I drew, I used to draw these symbols all the time, and that symbol that you see on the right hand side is actually an ancient symbol of reincarnation, I believe. I believe it was used in ancient times, and they used it in hieroglyphics and various forms of ancient writing. And by the way, hieroglyphics is the first form of writing. The Egyptians used hieroglyphics long ago, and it was also not only carved into stone, where they carried stone tablets around, and they would have stone writing in stone all over the walls with various symbols meaning various words, but not only were hieroglyphics the first form of writing, but papyrus. Papyrus is actually the first form of paper, and it was used by Egyptians in Egypt many, many years ago. Papyrus was made of it was kind of like a bamboo type material. It looked like a corn stalk type of, or corn husk type material, but it was sort of like a bamboo type material. And the very first forms of writing, according to our current understanding, is the Sumerians, which were the very first people or humans. It's believed that they were some of the most early humans in this world, and they created a writing. They created some hieroglyphics, and I believe gematria is actually a Jewish form of numbers that basically your name and everything correlates with numbers, and they use this system of gematria in Egypt. And so this symbol here is a reincarnation symbol. I'll show you here in a moment. Okay, this is actually the reincarnation symbol right here that you see right there. There are various forms of this symbol. There's the Japanese, the Celtic, pagan, Egyptian, ancient Egyptian symbolism, and Hinduism, as well as many others that have an ancient symbol of reincarnation. Another random fact is that the hippocampus is the part of the brain responsible for long-term memory. So if you have a memory where you remember your entire life, it's stored in the hippocampus, responsible for long-term memory. And the cerebellum and cerebrum are right above and below each other. And another random fact is the name of the muscle right at the jawbone is the mandible. And the hypothalamus is responsible for many things, including thermoregulation, temperature in the regulation in the body, and hydration levels, and many other things as well. And another fact is the body actually produces melatonin naturally at night. Only at night is the time that the human body will produce melatonin. Obviously, hypo means low, and hyper means above, and hypo is below. Another random fact is something that people might not know is long ago during the time of Edgar Allan Poe, and Poe is, I believe, where the word poem originated from. During that time period, there was a lot of famine, there was a lot of death and plagues during that time. There were a lot of disasters, and it was actually the fleas on the mice and rats that carried these deadly diseases over in the European areas. And sadly, they actually killed all the leaders, had all of the house pets killed. Cats and dogs, any animals on the street they could see, they killed them, thinking the fleas caused it. Well, when the scientists confirmed that it was actually from what I remember, it was the mice and rats that had the fleas that were carrying these diseases, they then exterminated all of the mice and rats, and the problem resolved. But sadly, millions upon millions had already died from the bubonic plague, or the Red Death. That is also where the book, The Mask of the Red Death, originated. That's where the Mask of the Red Death originated, which the original term is in another language and quite difficult to pronounce. I'll have to Google it sometime for you. But also the children's song, Ring Around the Rosie, that also had a tragic backstory as well. I remember in school, I think it was 9th or 10th grade, that I was taught by my English teacher that, and he was awesome, he was a really good teacher, he made every story come to life, but the deaths that were caused then, there were so many children dying from this plague. The song, Ring Around the Rosie, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. That has a very tragic backstory to it, a very tragic beginning. The song actually originated where people had to carry these posy flowers with them. From what I remember, I was taught in class that they carried these posies around with them, and they would get this red circle, a ring, a red rosy ring, and it was Ring Around the Rosie. It was a rosy colored circle, a ring that would appear on their arm, and it was something deadly. And the only thing to stop it was they would carry a pocket full of posies, posy flowers, and something in the genetic makeup, the chemical compound and the pollen that it had in those flowers was sort of like an antidote to that particular issue. And they would rub it on the red ring, and supposedly that pocket full of posies came in handy and helped stop that issue. But many people died of it, and they would all fall down, and that's what that was all about. And their skin would become this ashy color from this disease, and it would become this ashy type color. So very tragic backstory to these children's nursery rhymes and songs. Crazy how it has such sad origins. But they would all just die of this ashy colored plague. And a lot of tradition and stories came from some tragic backstories. So that was where that originated from. And another thing is Edgar Allan Poe, where he died, he was found in female clothing, and so everyone was stating that at the time they didn't want him to be known as a cross-dresser or whatever, and that really wasn't believed to be what caused that to happen. Truthfully, they think someone might have murdered Poe, and he just went, or he went crazy because of all of the circumstances throughout his life. Edgar Allan Poe was well known for his dark poetry and he wrote in iambic pentameter, which is stressed followed by unstressed syllables. That's what iambic pentameter is. And you have a trochee also, like they did in Epic Rap Battles of History with Watsky, George Watsky. A trochee is the opposite of iambic pentameter. It's opposite of iambic. It is unstressed followed by stressed syllables. So it's backwards. And Poe wrote in that all the time. And so he actually wrote The Raven in that. Quote the Raven, nevermore. Nevermore. Like the rap battles. But anyway, he, maybe I'll rap out the rap battle sometime. So, what happened was, it was believed he either went crazy or was murdered, because he was also found with alcohol upon his death. And the Baltimore Ravens were actually named after Edgar Allan Poe's poem, The Raven. They actually named the football team after them. So, from what I remember. He had a very tragic story. Everyone he ever fell in love with tragically died, and his loved ones died tragically. He died tragically, and no matter what he did, it would just drive him crazy. And bad things and misfortune always ensued with Edgar Allan Poe, and that's why a lot of his stories were, a lot of his poems and writings were filled with all of that. And he had so many tragedies in his life. So yeah, that's some random facts about Edgar Allan Poe. And that's why in the rap battles, by the way, they said, I will joke this joker with a trochee till his cheeks are teary. It's because a trochee is the opposite of iambic pentameter, and a trochee is the way he wrote that second verse. Watsky wrote the second verse in a trochee, the opposite of iambic pentameter. It's unstressed followed by stressed syllables, and iambic pentameter is stressed followed by unstressed syllables. So he wrote it in an opposite, so that it would be just like Edgar Allan Poe would do. So that's quite interesting that, George Watsky and Peter and Lloyd would, collaborate and make it like Edgar Allan Poe would do. So, also, actual paper and printing was invented by the Chinese in, I believe, the 2nd century. So, back to the paper topic again. And they say the Great Wall of China took a total of 300 years to complete, around several hundred years. And another interesting thing is there are multiple Great Walls worldwide. And there's the Great Wall of India or Indonesia, Pakistan, the Great Wall of China is the most well known, and there's the Great Walls in Machu Picchu, and several other countries have their own Great Walls as well. I'm sorry, actually what they stated, it actually took 2,000 years. I was thinking 300 years but it actually took 2,000 years to complete the Great Wall of China. I was thinking I might have gotten that wrong there, but yeah, it took 2,000 years to complete the Great Wall of China. Also, a random fact about genetics, there are 4 basic components to DNA, and they are adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. Those are A, T, G, C. And those four basic components, those four basic building blocks, excuse me, I'm sorry, they are genetically structured in various ways to make up you, basically. And if they are structured in different ways, or if there is an altercation, or not an altercation, but if there's an incorrect alteration in the variation of the way it's structured, then that causes an error. And you could have a genetic issue, or a problem, or you could have, for example, if there's issues with chromosomes, then you get Down syndrome, or you could, and I know that you might be born retarded, or, and I'm not using that word derogatorily. I'm saying that is what causes that, and there are issues with various issues like autism, and there are studies shown that electronics can cause many issues at the microcellular level, down with our cells, and interfere with the electromagnetic frequencies. Basically, the electromagnetic radiation that comes from all of our electronics, and soon to be the 5G, which is dangerous in my opinion, does have an effect on the natural flow of the electromagnetic frequencies, or electrostatic impulses in our body. Our body has a natural communication method, and the cells communicate using these static impulses. And these EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, could interfere with our body's natural flow and affect us negatively, in my opinion, and many other studies' opinions. So, back to the genetic building block, Watson and Crick were the two scientists that actually discovered under a microscope that the human DNA was shaped like a ladder. And this ladder was in the shape of what they called a double helix. This double helix was a theory that they had theorized for quite a while, and their hypothesis was proven fact upon using the scientific method, and observation under a microscope proved that our genetic structure did have the shape of a double helix, and it got its name from Watson and Crick, the two scientists who discovered the shape of the DNA and actually proved it. So the actual name for DNA, there's two things. There's RNA and DNA, and DNA actually is short for deoxyribonucleic acid. It's the acid created in the nuclei of a cell that creates the genetic structure of the human body. And DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. It's what you are made of. And RNA is ribonucleic acid. Sorry, that was the horoscope that popped up there. But that's just a random fact on human genetics and genetics in general. And botany, by the way, is the study of plants and their various... long ago they created diagrams to study the genetic variations in plants, and they actually worked with genetically modifying various plants. And hey Google, in 1973 Herbert Boyer actually made the very first genetically modified plant, and the very first scientist to actually prove that various genetic variations in plants take place, and manipulating plant genetics. He was considered the father of modern plant science, and he was a botanist from long ago. his name was Gregor Mendel, and we had to do several diagrams of him in middle school, of his diagrams where we would put down the various genetic traits of these plants and what it would likely become, if it was going to be white or red or white or both or spotted, and what percentage of chance there was of this plant being that color. And so Gregor Mendel was considered the father of plant science taking off in that field of study. And also some physics information. In physics and science, no light can escape a black hole. Even light cannot escape them. That's how powerful a black hole is. And it's believed that there is a black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. So that's also quite interesting. And another random fact is it takes 7 minutes for, I'm just giving random facts that pop into my mind throughout this video. It actually takes 7 minutes for light to make it from the sun to the Earth's atmosphere. And most of the energy from any type of CMEs or coronal mass ejections are taken care of by and kind of disappear into the ionosphere, but they are taken care of by the magnetosphere, the magnetic protective layer generated by the Earth's core, and it protects us from these harmful blasts most of the time. And the rest that makes it to the Earth in these highly charged particles are taken care of by the ozone layer. And what's not taken care of by the ozone layer makes it to the Earth and can sometimes disrupt satellites, GPS technology, cell phone signal, internet, and the power grid. A few years ago, Costa Rica and some in Puerto Rico as well, they actually dealt with power outages because of the solar blasts. But the beautiful thing from the solar blasts is they cause the northern and southern lights. The northern lights are more well known, and this happens when those highly charged particles from the sun, usually from the corona of the sun will release these particle ejections, and they will reach the Earth's atmosphere and create the northern lights when reacting with the aurora borealis. And that creates those beautiful, beautiful displays. And that's what we see when you see the northern lights. And they also say that the moon, when you see it in the northern hemisphere, looks one way. And then if you look at it from the southern hemisphere, because you're upside down, the moon and the face of the moon is completely opposite of what you would see in the northern hemisphere. Kind of like how water spins in the opposite direction due to the magnetic polarity in the south than it does in the north, the northern hemisphere. Also, the hottest temperature recorded in Nashville, Tennessee was 109 degrees, a record high temperature in 2012, the summer of 2012. And this year there have been record temperature variations and anomalies from record highs to record lows. So it just keeps on going on randomly. And another interesting fact is it's believed that the largest volcano in our solar system, which the solar system is in the Milky Way, named because of the sun, and the Milky Way galaxy is in a large part of the universe itself. So the largest known volcano near us is Olympus Mons, that is located on Mars. And the northern polar ice caps of Mars have been confirmed to actually be made of pure water. So, which I figured that by seeing the fact that they were ice to begin with, but it is confirmed that it was pure water. So that's kind of interesting. And they say the soil on certain parts of Mars can actually be used to grow turnips and maybe even asparagus, but probably nothing else due to the content of the soil, unless unnaturally processed by humans or created by humans, like using greenhouses and things like that and domes. It also